Hey everyone, here joined with Ben Kaplan, Ehave CEO. We're gonna just introduce the videos here. We're gonna be doing weekly, bi-weekly videos, talking to Ben, talking about his background, talking about the company, industry, you name it. I will be doing a ton of videos like that. Of course, if people have questions, you can always ask. But first things first, Ben, how are you?
Not so bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. No complaints. Just had a long weekend here, so feeling good. Do we want to maybe hop into your background? I figure let's do an intro video, get to know Ben, we can call it, or something along those lines. But do you want to kick us off maybe with where you went to school, first couple jobs?
Sure. I'm up from New York City. I live here in Miami Beach, Florida. I went to college up in upstate New York, Sullivan County. And I moved down here in 1999, where we had an opportunity to run a brokerage firm, a little money fund. 20 years has gone by pretty quickly. And I was able to invest in Ehave as one of my investments back in 2014. We did an IPO for the company back in 2015. And I've taken over as a CEO around about a year ago now, last July. And my background, I've taken dozens of companies public, financed them with my own capital, and been able to find unique opportunities that have current, functional time frames behind them. And what I mean by that is there's a wave, and in investing, you need to catch the wave at the right time and not be too early and not be too late. And so I think that where Ehave is positioned in mental health and digital therapeutics, working with inside the human brain, collecting data, we're at the perfect time in history for this sector that is about to bloom and blossom. And that's why I took the opportunity to step on the other side and not only be an investor, but be an officer and director of a company.
Yeah. So, I mean, awesome. We're going to have to pry your background apart a lot more than that, but definitely a great industry that you're getting into. It's getting a lot of, I guess, hype is one word, but it's getting a lot of love. There's a lot of money being put into it, and there's a lot of science being put into it as well. But, taking a step back. So you said you kind of started your own money management firm or your own fund. You start financing companies, taking them public. Do you want to maybe talk about some of the successes that you had? Any companies
Sure.
people might know?
Sure. A lot of successes, some failures. I started back in the 90s working for Donald Trump at the Taj Mahal, and working inside of a casino, you were able to see and deal with people losing and making money all day long. And from there, I ended up working for a small boutique in New York called Donald and Company. It was a brokerage firm in Midtown, and we did unicorn transactions. One of them was a company called Envision Technology. It was bought out by GE in 2001 after the Twin Towers were blown up. And you see them in all the airports around the world. It scan your luggage for bombs. And after doing a few successful transactions in the brokerage business, I decided to relocate here to South Florida, as I mentioned before. And I started investing in companies at certain times over the last 2 decades that were current and relevant. And one of the last few waves back in the 2000s was oil and gas, and had a few successful oil and gas runs where we've developed wells, drilled wells, service wells, mud farms, ancillary businesses. And oil was around $150 a barrel back then. And from there, we went off into mental health. You had companies like Lumosity and other main brain games, cognitive skills. And it was always interesting to see how some of these early movers and shakers try to develop themselves. And from there, you saw opportunities dealing with cannabis. And so in 2010, 2011, started making investments in the cannabis companies, took a few of them public, a couple from Israel, some from Colorado, and developed them into, I think they were successful in their own way. The businesses still exist. They still develop and sell products. And so for myself, I started investing in other companies that made sense, that where the future could be bright. And back in 2013, 2014, digital therapeutics was not a household term. And because of that, I felt that there'd be an opportunity to develop and be part of an organization. So over the years, Ehave has gone out and spent around $9 million developing their games, their cognitive tool sets, working with Sick Kids, a hospital chain in Canada, doing human trials. And these games are based for 6 to 12-year-olds. They are therapeutic and analyze for ADHD, ADD. And working with inside the human brain, I was lucky enough to be introduced to the psychedelic business, which some of it overlapped on the cannabis world. And I started looking at investments in that sector, and a few of them stood out to me. And so I started looking and exploring on what's the best way to approach a sector and have a unique offering versus what's being offered today. And some of the things that Ehave was very successful on before I took over was data collection. They were able to go out and work with companies like MedRelief. They were put out by Aurora for $2.7 billion a few years ago. And Ehave was their back end and front end. So when a patient came onto the LP, they were using Ehave's technology. And when the LP was evaluating what the patient was doing and how they were doing and how much they were smoking, it was the data collection tools that Ehave provided for the technicians over at MedRelief. And so taking that further into where we are with psychedelics, we feel that there's a bunch of information that is now being created in the botanical and synthetics. And we want to be on the forefront of offering out a SaaS product, an EMR system that could be utilized in a doctor setting, a clinical setting, a retreat setting, where they are able to go out and book their patients, take psychiatric notes, use it as an intake form, a follow-up technology using AI, and then everything's backed up by blockchain. We're a partner with Burst IQ, and they provide us HIPAA-compliant storage and a suite of software that we're able to offer out through our dashboard. And so this is the direction I'm taking Ehave in, is to have some of the best data sets in botanicals, and hopefully get a lot of other data sets in mental health through personal health records. And you read a lot about that with inside Ehave from the past and going forward. It's something that we're concentrating on, which is personal health records are getting to a point with the consumer of needing to be digitalized, where a lot of the telemedicine platforms that people are signing up for need their records. And most of my records are sitting in a doctor's office analog or analog digital, where they've taken and scanned it into a system, but it's not using any AI and any search functions that if a doctor wanted to see my statistics for the last 5 years, they would have to manually go through all my files and then compile that in a spreadsheet. So I feel that empowering the patient and having their personal health records as a vehicle to monetize in the future will be something that's going to be offered out through Ehave and other competitors. You'll see very shortly where they're going to offer out opportunities for a consumer to sell or be part of selling their data. Since most of the data is HIPAA compliant, and in other countries they have their own regulations, you own your data, and for someone to use that, they need your permission. So we felt through smart contracts and a co-partnership on the data as we go out and get customers that are looking for those data sets. If they include your data, maybe you have diabetes or be a white male at 50 years old and meet the requirements of the person looking for the data, we'll participate and send you some of that capital through the smart contract. So we're really on cutting edge right now. We're trying to create as many data points as possible and then compile that in a face type of dashboard where you can see a visual in graphs and charts of everything that's being requested. And so that's a little about myself and the reasons why I got involved in Ehave in the past, and where I think today the cognitive skill set games were something that was hard to overcome from a business perspective. But a few weeks ago, the FDA approved a digital therapeutic game, which now has its own billing code and can be prescribed by a U.S. doctor and be reimbursed by an insurance company. It's opening the sector up for some of our legacy assets. So it's an exciting time over here at Ehave. I'm glad I was able to
well, here,
join.
like, to give you a little bit of a breather, you're teasing so many things that could be great videos. This, FDA approval of a, cognitive game, that's insane. Talking even about your background, the nice part I love personally, even like as an investor, if I was looking at the psychedelic space, there's a lot of new players that are kind of trying to capitalize on a trend. So it seems, but really, it seems like the psychedelic industry fits perfectly into what Ehave's trying to do. And Ehave's been around, been collecting, been working alongside a lot of different companies, a lot of different clients as well. That it's kind of the perfect match. It's not like, hey, yep, we're just capitalizing on a trend. It's, look, we're here, we're trying to better it, and obviously we've got the team behind us to do it.
I agree.